Call to order the December 17th Port Orchard Regular City Council meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. We are to our first order of business, which is the approval of the agenda.
Yes, I would like to add a consent agenda item, the excuse for both Councilmember Diener and Councilmember Cacciardi.
Okay, and I believe, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember Lucarelli, and Councilmember Diener is for business reasons, and Councilmember Cacciardi's out sick this evening, so didn't want to share his bug. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion of adding that is consent item D. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that item has been added. Councilmember Ashby, did you have something else?
Yes, I did. I would move to remove business item F from the agenda this evening.
Second.
Motion and a second, and when we get to that, we'll talk a little bit about why we're removing that later in this evening. So, correct, Mr. Bond?
During my report.
Yeah, maybe in your report. There we go. So we have a motion and a second to remove business item 7F. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That item has been removed.
And Mr. Mayor, I would also like to add a business item, and I believe it would be I, and that's for a discussion on a letter of support to the Navy regarding funding of SR3.
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Clausen, and that letter's on the dais for you, and we'll discuss that when we get to it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to adding that? Hearing none, the item has been added. Okay. Is there a motion to any other amendments or modifications to the agenda?
No, but I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Clausen. Further discussion of this evening's agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda has been set. We are to our citizen comment period, and the first period is for anything that is on this evening's agenda. Chief, would you like to step forward and identify yourself for the record?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Fawcett, Assistant Chief with South Kitsap Fire and Rescue. I'm just here on behalf of the fire department tonight to show our support for the Navigator program. I know that's on the agenda later tonight, but we have had a great relationship with the city, working with you for fire and EMS, and this is a program that has really taken off. And my medical officer is supposed to be here tonight. He got the flu, but he has been working on this, and I know that he has nothing but good to say about this and the impact that it's making, not just in the city for the police, but for the fire and emergency services. So we just wanted you to know that we are supporting this and whatever action that you can take tonight. And if you have any other questions, we're here for you tonight. So, thank you.
Chief. Others wishing to address the council this evening, please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and department heads. My name is Officer William Shadley, and I would like to make comments concerning the Navigator program here at the Port Orchard Police Department. I strongly support the Navigator program, which is a vital link between the police and those individuals who are experiencing a mental crisis and are in need of help, and as we as the police, along with fire personnel, are dispatched to help them. There are times when it's a quick fix by taking the individual to the hospital, but what happens after that? A report is done, and we forward it to Melissa Stern, and we also try to brief her in person with our concerns or what other resources might or could be used to help this person. There have been many times that Navigator Melissa Stern has been asked to help. She is a wealth of knowledge and can navigate the sometimes difficult course of getting the correct help or offering the right resources to hopefully have a positive outcome for the individual. We have many citizens who suffer daily from mental health issues and mental health crisis, and having this asset to help us deal with these sometimes complex issues is instrumental in helping our citizens of this great city to hopefully move forward in their lives when they're at a point when they feel there are no other options available to them. I recently had a case dealing with a family in our city in which I requested her assistance, and she was invaluable in what she brought to the table when it came to finding the correct resources, as well as provide other valuable information to help this family. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and thank you for your leadership to our city and your consideration in funding this very important program. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Others wishing to address the council?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I did not write something down, so
Sergeant Main, I know who you are.
this will
but
come
could
straight
you-
from my heart and my head, so.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Sergeant Main, Port Orchard Police. So I too want to just reiterate the importance of the Navigator program. I started 10 years ago. We did not have this program. And at the time, and we get out and we see people in their worst possible situation. We're talking mental health. It could be drug-related. It doesn't have to be. It could be domestic. It could be just issues at home, lost their home. It could be anything that you can think of that where we come into contact with this person and try to help them. We're very limited on what we can do. And when the Navigator program came around, it was a piece of that puzzle that is so important to my guys, to our department. It's not only important to them because it cuts down on recidivism for these people that are either in crisis mode where they have an option to do something, but it also helps the community as well. They may get housing. Maybe they don't have to live in their car anymore. Maybe they don't have to live on the street anymore. Maybe we can get them the much needed medical assistance that they need, or counseling that they need, or drug interactions that they may need. I have said this many times. I have probably given Melissa Stern, I can't say enough nice things about her. She's an amazing part of our team. So when I'm out with, I get emotional because I'm passionate about this. We see people in their worst. And before Melissa came along, we would walk away. We had nothing for them. Did you want to go to the hospital? Most of the time it was a no. And what's the point of going to the hospital? A lot of the times it wasn't even the answer. Should we take them to jail? A lot of times they don't need to go to jail. There has to be other options. And Melissa came around, and she provided that other option. I have said that this card that Melissa gives us to pass out, and this small card as well, that we pass out to these people that we see in the street, I look at it, and most of you may be able to, you're old enough, I think there are not too many young ones in here, but you may know Willy Wonka and that golden ticket. And I refer to this as a golden ticket for the people that get this chance. And Melissa gives them that chance. And she offers hope where there is none. I ask that you support this program. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about Melissa. And we have to do right for these people in our community. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And we need your help. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to address the council this evening? All right, with that, I'm going to close the first citizen comment period. We have another one at the end of the meeting, and we are to our consent agenda. Is there a motion? Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. Second by Councilmember Chang. Any discussion of our consent agenda this evening? Hear none, all in favor of approving the amended consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This consent agenda is approved. So we have a special guest here tonight. We have Judge Kevin Kelly from District Court from Kitsap County, and he is going to administer some oaths of office this evening, since some of us have been re-elected this past November. So would you like to do the council members first, or myself? All right, so I'm going to step forward and take care of this, and then we'll get to the council.
All right, it's my pleasure to perform the ceremony. Thank you for asking. If you would please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Robert
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified
to assume the office
to assume the office
of City of Port Orchard Mayor,
of City of Port Orchard Mayor,
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of this office
discharge the duties of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
All right, the next one I have in my hand here is John Clausen. All right, please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, John Clausen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified
to assume the office
to assume the office
of City of Port Orchard Council Position 4,
of City of Port Orchard Council Position 4,
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of this office
the duties of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Mr. Roosevelt.
Take the cheat sheet with me. It wasn't that tough.
I know.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jay Roscoe,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified to assume
that I am legally qualified to assume
the office of City of Port Orchard Council at Large,
the City of Port Orchard Council at Large,
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of this office
of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Congratulations. Thank you.
Last but not least,
Send it to my mom.
I state your name.
I, Cindy Lupiello,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified
to assume the office
to assume the office
of City of Port Orchard Council Position 5,
of the City of Port Orchard, Council Position 5,
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of this office
of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Kelly. We greatly appreciate your taking the time to do this evening with us.
You're welcome, thank you.
Before we get to our next presentation, Chief, about half of them have disappeared, but you've got a number of distinguished guests. I don't know that we've ever had this many uniforms, other than the night that you were sworn in this office. And we also had something, so maybe you want to introduce some of the folks that are here, and then something special happened today, and if you could maybe tell us about that.
Sure. So this is Officer Bill Shively. In the back, we've got our SRO, Eric Wofford. Josh Horsley works graveyard. We've got Sergeant Jason Clance. You've met Sergeant Maine. We've got Heather Humphrey, who works in our administrative services division. And of course, our illustrious Deputy Chief Dale Schuster is sitting here as well. We did have something pretty dramatic happened today, and I wanted to share it with you. We're going to do more follow-on with it. But Officer Shibley and Officer Steve Morrison, who you may remember from earlier fame this year when they assisted greatly with a garage sale. We received a call today of someone who was in crisis at the jail. They had, I believe, stumbled into the lobby and were originally dispatched as either passed out or sleeping on a bench. Officer Shibley and Officer Morrison showed up and pretty quickly recognized that not only was the person in medical crisis, but was overdosing on opioids. So prior to me getting here, Chief Martai worked with the rest of the agencies in the county and instituted a Narcan program. So our officers do carry Narcan. It's nasal. Officer Shibley and Officer Morrison coordinated administering a dose. They were given some sternum rubs and recognized, even though aid was still coming, that there was not enough time and that one dose was not enough. That's what we're starting to see a lot with fentanyl and a lot of the other opioids that are out there. They're strong enough that a single dose does not cause the effect that we want. So they did a second dose, continued with the sternum rubs, and I believe right before fire showed up, they were able to save this person from dying from an opioid overdose. So it's pretty dramatic, and it's also the first one that we've had in the city since we've had this program. So I believe it was January, is that when we started the program? This is something that we're continuing to see around our county. In fact, the state is now doing an overdose map so that we can start to understand better where these things are happening, and we can see kind of the pathways of where these narcotics are hitting our communities. But like I said, we're going to do some more things with Officer Shibley and Officer Morrison, but I felt it was important that we took some time today and shared that with you and shared the good work that we're doing. That's also why we've got quite a contingent here tonight. So I wanted to thank you, Master Chief.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Yes, please do.
So she's already been heralded by Sergeant Main and others. I first got to know Melissa when I was working in the city of Poulsbo. She is currently a city of Poulsbo employee. She's got a presentation tonight. We were planning on doing this actually for quite a while, and it just falls perfectly that we have an ask, but I'm hoping that I'm excited to hear what she's got to say. We've talked about it for a little while, so Melissa, it's all you.
Hello. My name is Melissa Stern. I'm a behavioral health navigator.
And Melissa, if you could just do, and I know we can hear you, but we're recording this, and
all right, nice and
you're
loud.
going to be famous, and just make sure you're speaking into that
Okay.
microphone.
It's very far.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
You're doing just fine.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you to the officers for coming out to support me. I'm here to talk to you today about the Behavioral Outreach Program. It's currently a Poulsbo Police Department program. So first I should introduce myself. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from California State University in Chico, California. I have several years of experience in my career working with chemical dependency, residential treatment, particularly women with their children in treatment. I've worked with developmental disabilities programs, both in the home and with the families, as well as out in the community. I moved up to Seattle and started working with individuals that have mental illnesses as a vocational specialist. So I would both prepare them for work and engaging in their community, but I found that most of my job was actually working with chambers of commerce and city council and business owners to develop those positions and create those accommodations for my clientele. After that, I moved over to Kitsap County, and the last few years I've been supervising the inpatient psychiatric unit over at Kitsap Mental Health, the adult inpatient unit. I've been a navigator for about a year and a half, and I've been in Port Orchard for a little over a year now. I sent you all the Lexapol packet to go in with your packets, just to establish, we're short on time here today, that mental illness is an issue for law enforcement. Those crisis calls, I think we can establish with that packet, I think everyone pretty much knows that it is an issue for law enforcement. I wanted to briefly focus on some national statistics and then focus down through Washington State and into Port Orchard. Roughly 18% of the population is currently living with a mental illness. Washington State has the 7th highest rate for adults. 50% of those individuals are not receiving treatment. We have 9 inpatient psychiatric beds for every 100,000 residents. That puts us 46th in the nation. So when officers are told to, pick someone up and get them a bed someplace, there isn't a bed. I wanted to bring it down to Port Orchard. We make up about 30% of the Navigator referrals for all of Kitsap County. So that's Bainbridge, Paulsbo, Bremerton, and Port Orchard. We're a third of those calls and referrals. Because Washington State lacks the appropriate community-based treatment facilities and adult family homes to discharge clients from Western State Hospital, the burden often falls on law enforcement to fill the gaps in the mental health system. So there was some confusion when I first came to Port Orchard, and I wanted to address that really quickly with this slide. You might know the Navigator program. It originated through the courts. We started off in 2015 in municipal courts. In 2016 and 17, we were sort of helping with a couple police departments, but expanding into behavioral health court. In fact, the first 2 navigators are currently running the behavioral health court just up the hill. We transitioned into full-on law enforcement in 2018. It was helpful to get upstream. Once people are in court, they're already being prosecuted. It's nice to divert there, but if we go upstream, we can do a lot more good. So this year in 2019, the big news was that we officially became police department employees. We're not just city employees. That gives us access to records and documentation and really makes us a part of the team. So as the program stands now, we're primarily funded by the 0.1% treatment tax. We also receive funding from 3 of the 4 cities that the Navigators work in. That's Bainbridge, Paulsbo, and Bremerton. There are currently 3 Navigators for 4 police departments in Kitsap County, and our operational budget is $523,000 a year right now. The big question, what do Navigators do? We co-respond with officers to calls. We're able to go with them to the scene. We can ride in the cars. We follow up primarily, actually. We can go into the jails if necessary. We don't do assessments, we don't do case management, and we don't do treatment. So I wanted to be really clear about that. We really work in officer communication and education. This is new. This is a new concept, bringing this into police departments. The idea of social work it's a lot for them to learn. We can work with prosecutors. We can work with treatment agencies. We work with service agencies. We will call your mother if you're in trouble with the police. We work with families. One of the bonuses of the Navigator program is that we can work with anyone. We're not contracted through a certain service agency who would funnel every referral into that agency. Because we're a part of the police department, we're free to refer anywhere, which really helps. So the next thing I wanted to do was kind of walk you through a few cases and give you an example of what law enforcement is coming upon where traditionally they would kind of leave you at the hospital, like Sergeant Main was saying, and where the Navigator steps in. So I changed names. I wanted to talk to you today for a first case study about Tanner. Tanner is 7 years old. He lives in Port Orchard. He lives with his mother, who works in the healthcare industry, his aunt, she's a full-time college student, and his grandmother, who at the time of our 911 call was recovering from surgery on her ankle. So 911 was called for physical violence. Police went out there, and this is what they kind of came upon. And it was that Tanner had become angry about something. A limit was set. And he decided to take it out on Grandma and actually tried to strike her surgical site where she was healing. His aunt came and removed him from the room, took him out down the hall to the living room. She turned around to go check on Grandma, and as she was walking down the hall, she heard a drawer in the kitchen open. When she turned around to Tanner, he was holding a butcher knife. He chased her. She and Grandma hid in their room with him outside the door with a knife, called 911. By the time officers had arrived, luckily, the aunt was able to get the knife away from the child without serious injury, and he was in his room. When officers engaged him there, they did find a rudimentary suicide note, and it was just the saddest thing you've ever seen, with little lollipop eyes, and this kid was really suffering. He's too young to take to juvenile hall or to press charges, so they transported him to Harrison Hospital, the local hospital. Typically, that is where law enforcement disengages. That is the end of a police report, the end. So it was referred to me. Where the navigator steps in, I called Mom, and I found out that this is not uncommon in their house. They are getting to be terrified of this child. They've gone to every parenting class. They do love him so much to try to make it better. They've been trying to engage with treatment since he was 3 years old. He's too young to diagnose. He's too young to medicate. He's just too young. So they were sent home, and they've been managing ever since. But now he's 7. He's getting too big for them to manage, and they're scared. So what we did was we came up with a plan. We created a crisis plan. Next time this happens, which it sounds like it happens a lot, here's where you start moving. Don't wait till the knife comes out, right? A lot sooner than that. We gathered documentation, the copies of those notes, copies of police reports, any records that they had obtained in any of their attempts to get treatment, and we came up with a systems plan. The local hospital does not have specialists to see a child his age. Even Marybridge, who sees children, can't really see anyone under the age of 13. What they need to do is go out to Seattle Children's, and the mother had no idea that she had the right to request transport to Seattle Children's if and when emergency services arise. So we came up with a plan for her. About 3 weeks later, yes, Tanner had another outburst. Luckily, they had this plan in place. Because of that documentation, Seattle Children's had a 3-week wait, but they went ahead and put him at the top of the list because she had that note and she had police documentation. He received a formal diagnosis, which allows us to find evidence-based treatment for him. However, his diagnosis, that evidence-based treatment, does not exist in Kitsap County. It does not exist in Washington State. We can put him on a couch and have him talk about his problems, but that's not how you would treat this diagnosis with this age of child. What we did was sought an expert out of Yale University. She lives in Connecticut. She owns an institute out there, and she is an expert in the treatment modality that would be effective for this child. Reached out to her. What does she recommend we do? What should we do? And luckily, she agreed to meet with this family doing web-based counseling on a sliding scale down to free if necessary on a weekly basis. They were connected to treatment, and we have not heard from Tanner's family again. They're doing well. The parents have learned how to manage his behaviors. They're working with him, and he's successful in the community now. Another example, if I have time, is a teenager, Dan. Dan is a 15-year-old male. You might have heard about this one. He has a history of alcohol use, including 7 arrests. He's failing at all interventions so far. He's endorsing suicidality. His parents are very concerned. At this point, he's been in trouble for theft, robbery, car prowling, assault, domestic violence. He's been expelled from school. He's drinking in his alternative classes, so he's getting kicked out of that. He's testing positive for alcohol with his probation officer, and he's been kicked out of his father's house for assault. So I engage with this family, and what I hear is he has been evaluated for chemical dependency. He is seeing a counselor every week. They don't understand. It's just not working. What we learned was that the treatment agency that he was attending was not actually qualified to treat children his age, as well as with his severity. So again, they were trying to fit him in a local treatment box that it just wasn't the right fit. What we did was we coordinated with different treatment providers, services, and agencies to find out where that disconnect was coming from. We got him connected with a psychiatrist out of Pierce County that was willing to take his insurance, his family's insurance. And we got him a new chemical dependency evaluation. It turned out he wasn't so honest in the last one. He told his chemical dependency evaluator that he really didn't have a lot of problems with law enforcement or anything, so he got a lower level score. With information from the Navigator program, the next evaluator was fully informed and could give him a proper diagnosis. He ended up going to a treatment program out in Oregon State that specializes in teenagers, specializes in that co-occurring mental health and drug and alcohol piece. I heard from Sergeant Main just the other day that she pulled up and saw someone had left their trunk open. So she very kindly went and knocked on the door, and who should answer it but our very own Dan, and he wanted to let her know that he is getting good grades now, he's clean and sober, he's back in school, he's engaged in life. So that's another success story. And then my last story for you is about Bree and Val. They're both 30 years old. They have 208 law enforcement interactions between the two of them. So they use a lot of our resources. 23 arrests between the two of them, and it's mostly due to heroin. Sergeant contacted them due to some expired registration, walked up to the car, and there was paraphernalia right there in the open. Generally, maybe they would have gone to jail. Would that have helped the 24th time? Probably not. So I wanted to tell you this story to kind of demonstrate how that one connection to service doesn't always work. They were connected to Kitsap Recovery Center and sent out the door for wrong insurance. They were transported to Harborview Hospital, has a walk-in detox program. Turned out that they were not actually admitted or fed during any of this because they were not in a medical crisis, so they walked out after a day. We connected them to Harrison Hospital. They were medically cleared to detox at home, but they don't have a home. Talked to family members, talked them into reluctantly allowing them to detox at their home safely and wait for an ABHS residential treatment program bed. They were several days apart. They had to go on 2 different trips. Bree and Val are currently connected to Oxford Clean and Sober Housing. It's been about 4 months clean and sober. This is the longest we've ever seen. They're doing very well. They are getting jobs. They are housed. They're just doing wonderfully. But I wanted to tell that story just to demonstrate that that first police drop off to treatment does not always work, nor does the second or the third, and sometimes you really have to dig deep. That's it. Any questions?
Questions for Melissa? Powerful stories.
Thank you.
I appreciate the work you're doing for the city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right.
We are to our business items for this evening, and the first of which is approval of an interlocal agreement with the city of Paulsbo for provision of law enforcement behavioral health navigator services. Chief Brown.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Follows on with directly what Melissa was just discussing. So this is an updated ILA between the City of Port Orchard and the City of Paulsbo for the provision of law enforcement behavioral health navigator services. The City of Paulsbo currently provides a navigator to the City of Port Orchard for up to 25 hours per week. The navigator receives an average of 35 referrals from police officers every month, and this referral to navigation services permits officers to provide a higher level of compassionate service to those who need more than law enforcement assistance. Providing subjects a connection to the services also allows officers more time to deal with the criminal element in our community. Navigators are also able to spend more time working on solutions as they are not responsible for dealing with any additional calls for service. The City of Paulsbo currently provides the Behavioral Health Navigator Program at no cost to the City of Port Orchard. This is not consistent with other member agencies. The City of Bremerton and the City of Bainbridge Island budget $30,000 annually for their own navigator. It's highly likely our access to this unique program will be removed should we not participate financially. We recommend to the council to approve this interlocal agreement.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the mayor signing an ILA between the City of Port Orchard and the City of Paulsbo to continue providing for law enforcement behavioral health navigator services.
Second.
A motion and a second. And I'd just like to add, this is probably the first bite of something bigger we've got to provide in our community. I know fire has a desire to expand this, and it's not likely that the grant that funds this is going to exist in perpetuity. So I think as we have our as we're working through our retreat and our priorities, I think that there's probably something more we're gonna need to find to keep this program viable in our community, and it's, as we've heard, it's very, very important. You know, in particular, some of the things we've just read about, some of the case law that's been affirmed related to homelessness. We've got to put some tools to work in our community to help folks, and so I appreciate the motion in the second and the presentation we got here this evening, and all the support from all of you. So, other questions or comments?
I would just say that after the passion testimony we've heard tonight, there's no way I would vote against it.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
Another thing that we know is this $30,000 that may be spent saves so much money when you finally get people getting the help they need. So it benefits all of us.
Councilmember Shang.
Can you tell us a little more? Do we have her services 3 days a week? Are they regularly scheduled days, or is it sort of on call, or?
No, they are regularly scheduled.
Okay.
Melissa's down in our police department most days. I see your car in the parking lot.
So more than 3 days?
We try and keep her there as often as we can, but she does have her own workspace down there, and we coordinate pretty tightly with her. I mean, there's an amazing amount of work that she's able to do for us, and that allows us to do what we need to do in the community.
Interesting story. When the chief started, I went down, and Melissa's office is an old interview room, and the door handle was not, it didn't allow her to get out if the door got, and she'd been locked in her office with a cell phone. Somebody come let me out. So we've changed the door handle out. It's an expensive door handle, but she can't do her work when she's locked in the interview room.
It was worth the investment.
It was worth the investment, yes. So, other comments or questions? With that, you'll be voting to approve an interlocal agreement with the City of Paulsbo for the Behavioral Health Navigator Services. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, thank you. All right, we're on to our second business item, 7B, adoption of an ordinance authorizing a change to the police department staffing from 18 officers and 3 sergeants to 17 officers and 4 sergeants. Chief Brown.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. As part of the ongoing review of the organizational structure of the department, the need for increased supervision has been identified. The department currently has 1 vacancy for patrol officer. This request is to move that vacancy from patrol to the position of sergeant, creating an additional sergeant position and reducing the FTE count for patrol from 18 to 17. This will provide 4 sergeants for the department, providing additional supervisory capacity across the 24/7, 365 schedule. So with the support of Mayor Putansu and the Finance Director, I recommend the City Council approve the change in FTE count to move 1 FTE from the job classification of police patrol to the job classification of police sergeant.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance approving the reallocation of 1 FTE from patrol officer to police sergeant as requested.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ashby. Councilmember Clausen, has a motion made here?
Yes, I just wanted to share with the rest of the council, Beck and I with the Finance Committee today heard some of the rationale from the chief, and the committee is supportive of this action, so.
Here at our retreat, that Chief is working through the executive summary, creating an executive summary of a LEMAP that we'd had done. It's a, Chief, what exactly is the?
Sure. So LEMAP stands for the Loaned Executive Management Assistance Program, and it's a service offered through WASPIC, which is the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. And usually when you have new leadership come into an organization, they will come in and they provide a top-to-bottom assessment on about 140 different critical areas to see where we stand up to case law, where we stand up to best practice, and where we stand up to expectations of the community. So we have that report I'll provide for everyone at the retreat, but this is some of the steps that we've identified that we need to probably move on now as opposed to waiting a little bit longer.
We didn't want to take away his thunder, so be careful, Mayor.
Yeah, I know, and I hate throwing acronyms out that I can't explain, so. Other questions for the chief?
Well, no, but the other thing, just counsel, that we learned from talking to the chief is even if we approve this evening, it's 6 to 9 months before we will actually have another sergeant. It's a lengthy process.
Other questions or comments? Okay, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance authorizing a change in police department staffing from 18 officers, 3 sergeants, to 17 officers and 4 sergeants. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to 7C, adoption of an ordinance amending section of Port Orchard Municipal Code 10.12.580 and 10.12.600 regarding parking and public streets. And Clerk Reinerson, you're up on this one.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. So I want to start off that you should have on the dais a revised, updated, red line version of the proposed changes before you and a revised final version. So the difference from the updated is that I grabbed a prior version of 10.12.600, and so I just updated those. Does not affect any of the changes that have been proposed to you tonight, just a up-to-date version. So with that, the city was approached to find ways to provide more parking downtown. City staff has conferred with the Port Orchard Bay Street Association and has determined that opening the designated merchant parking lot 1 between Orchard and Frederick Street on the north side of the Bay Street, which is in the blue section here.
I need binoculars.
No, that's perfect.
Over there, okay.
So this squiggly line here is the area that I'm talking about. So again, it's between Orchard and Frederick Street on the north side of Bay Street. So opening up that was to determine to the beneficial to the general public. The parking lot is being underutilized by the merchants and may be better served by the public at large. With this change, any member of the public will be able to park in this lot for up to 4 hours maximum. In addition, Cody Morgan, the owner of Peninsula Beverage Company, has confirmed that changing the public parking adjacent to his business from 2 hours to 4 hours will not affect his business, and that is one of the proposed changes as well. So again, over here on Harrison in the orange is the area of Lot 3 that is being proposed.
Which is currently 2 hour, and the merchants asked us to modify that to 4 hours.
Yes. So in addition, for further clarification, it mentioned that merchant parking is available from the 500 block to the 1300 block of Bay Street. So where that is, I'm going to zoom back out. So basically it is from the boat launch over here, or the DeKalb Pier, I think is what we call it, all the way over to the 1300 block is up here by Key Bank. So that is what the code describes. That is not being proposed to change. That is the existing code. But I was asked to provide where that area is. So again, the current code states that the downtown merchant parking pass is available of whose businesses of that place employment that is located between that. It's not where they can park. It's just the businesses within those section are are considered merchants for that purpose to use Lot 1. Okay. So with that, staff recommends adoption of the ordinance as presented.
I would like to point out, we didn't get this quite right. And if you go to the clean version, it'll be easier. We didn't need, I believe with the edits we've made, we've abolished the merchant parking. And I don't think that's the intent.
Well,
Or where do they park?
okay, well, that was my question, is if we took away
All
the
the lang-
designated area, and then I had asked Brandy, because I didn't read this as that's where the merchants the business needed to be located. I thought that that's where they could park. So-
The intent was, I believe, was to, the merchant passes are underutilized and at times currently not utilized at all.
Right.
But I don't believe the intent was to do away with that program. We would love the merchants to use that, but they're not. And it's $35 a month, and they for those stalls. I think if we added to this last sentence on the bottom of page 1, where it says lot 1, it says, it ends with city parking is limited to 4 hours and monthly merchant passes. If the merchants aren't there and parked,
It's
it's available as 4-hour parking, I believe was the intent, not to abolish the merchant parking in that area.
Correct. And so,
And what I believe we presented here strikes the references to merchant parking.
that is, for whatever reason, it's not identified in that section of the code. It's actually identified in the 600 section, which is on the bottom of page 3 on the final. That's where, for whatever reason, how they designed the code, it mentions that merchant parking, the amount, and specifically where it's at. The only thing that we're removing is the limited time of it being guaranteed from 6 a.m. to, I believe, 10 a.m.
That's all great, but I think we should still reference merchant monthly passes in this one area, in lot 1. Where it says,
So add that to the current code.
I would say city parking is limited to 4 hours maximum and monthly merchant passes. And/or, there we go, and/or.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got it close, we just didn't get it quite right. Councilmember Quassa?
Yeah, I have just a question, and it's more of just information. In reviewing all of these different rates and passes, does the general public have the ability to get a monthly pass?
No, not any longer. We abolished that last time we updated this.
So
It's
Should
their
be
only
weekly.
option is to buy a weekly,
Yeah, and I'm
$8.
and I think there's a bigger discussion we need to have related to these rates, and I would recommend maybe February's work study, we talk about these rates. I've heard that our daily rate of $8, if our intent, and I believe it is, as things happen and are developed and structured parking is created by developers, I think we would like them to create paid parking in those structures, and they have some economy of scale in doing so. And what we're doing at $8 is actually hurting their performance. It won't pencil, and they won't park more than what their minimum parking requirements. I think our rates are pretty low. I think we've had some testimony that those lots are at capacity, and we've had some testimony about it. There just isn't any parking available. We're offering a discount on a weekly pass. I think there's a conversation, do we want to do that? We also have a pass for $35 for carpools. No one uses that because transit, if you're a carpool and park in Annapolis, you park for free. So no one's utilizing our $35. Do we want to do something with that to incent more carpools? Do we want to abolish it? I think this is, I think, a first step to address some of the things that the merchants were asking for, changing some times. But I think we need to bring this back and have a bigger discussion about whether we want to incent carpools and whether we want to just have a daily rate. Do we want to have a weekly rate, and what should that daily rate be? And I think it's probably low.
Okay.
Personal opinion.
So I would just recommend that whoever the motion maker is, that if they want to approve the ordinance as presented with a small change, I think it should capture the intent. So it would just be that the last sentence of 10.12.580 should say that the city and merchant parking is limited to 4 hours maximum, and then they go to the 600 section that identifies the direct location, the cost, and
But the merchant parking isn't limited to 4 hours.
No, that's not correct.
oh,
So
gotcha.
that wouldn't be an accurate
Yeah.
statement. So
Okay.
city parking is limited to 4 hours and/or monthly merchant passes, is what I,
Gotcha.
is what I heard. So, a motion?
Yes. I move to adopt an ordinance revising certain parking provisions in the Port Orchard Municipal Code 10.12.580 and 10.12 600 is presented, and adding to the last sentence on section 1A, that it read, city parking is limited to 4 hours maximum and/or monthly merchant passes.
Seconded.
Second by Councilmember Clausen. Further discussion of what we brought before tonight? I think we've captured it. The row of merchant lot will still be available to merchants if people want to use it. If nobody is, it can be used as 4 hour. And then we're amending the 2 hour to 4 hour in front of Peninsula Bevco.
So we call for a vote.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm not certain, that's why I'm asking the question. I believe monthly in 1A was referring to the monthly commuter van pool program. So if that's the intent, I wouldn't want to eliminate the monthly.
No, it's merchant
commuter
parking pass. It's not, you're right, the word monthly shouldn't be, it should just be merchant passes.
I would change my motion so it says
Second agrees.
merchant passes, yes.
Well, do you want to keep the monthly in so it's still available for commuters?
Monthly is not available to commuters. Our machine doesn't dispense it any longer. The only monthly pass that's available is the one for the commuter van pools, and they're able to park anywhere down in the, I believe, I'm not the parking enforcement person, she's not here this evening. And no one, when I talked to Janelle about this yesterday, I think it was, she said she hasn't issued one of these in several months. And I believe primarily because Kitsap Transit has a similar program and they charge nothing and to park at Annapolis if you're a registered van pool and show up at their lot down there. So that monthly pass is referring to the van pools, not a monthly pass that you get.
That's the motion maker. I believe the intent of this is to open up what had been reserved for merchant parking to the general public for 4 hours. We've received, as council members, emails from citizens who have not been able to park with various obligations they had and needed to use the foot ferry. And we've even had testimony last meeting with a citizen that had difficulty. So this is eliminating or trying to resolve an immediate need. And it also then made the 4 hour parking there behind the library, between the library and the new, well, the old Amy's, yeah. So I'm supportive of it. We're working in a direction that has been requested. So.
One bite out of the apple.
Yeah.
I'm
Councilmember
also
Chang.
supportive, and I think one thing that the finance director brought up is that the versions that we're looking at are different. I think the current one that we found tonight is speaking to weekly public parking
Right.
pass. But the original on page 53
That's
does
correct.
have monthly. So that is confusing.
What was put in your packets was an old version.
Okay.
That got changed.
So-
And what was put on the dais tonight
Yes.
is the version that you passed previously that we're amending tonight, and I'm sorry for the confusion. It's a difficult enough issue without
Version
we're having too many
Yeah.
versions on the
Yeah.
dais.
version creep, yeah.
I think everybody understands what we're doing. All right, with that,
Sort
all in favor of amending the parking downtown as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to 7D, adoption of a resolution adopting the 2020 City Council meeting schedule. Clerk Reinerson.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. So pursuant to Port Orchard Municipal Code 2.04.010, meeting time and place, the City Council shall hold a minimum of 1 meeting per month. The City Council shall determine the annual schedule for these meetings for the next calendar year, no later than the last regular business meeting of the preceding calendar year. As done in previous years, the Council will continue to meet at 6:30 p.m. on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month for regular council meetings, and for the third Tuesday of every month for a council work study session. However, the meetings in August and December will be the second and third Tuesday of that month, and both meetings to be regular council meetings. Staff recommends the adoption of the resolution adopting the 2020 City Council meeting scheduled as presented.
Councilmember Lucarelli?
I move to adopt a resolution adopting the 2020 City Council meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe. And this schedule is consistent with what we've done the last 3 years, where we take a break in August and December, and staff greatly appreciates that a little bit of time off in the summertime and at Christmas. Any questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're to item 7E, adoption of a resolution accepting the donation of a Chihuly-inspired chandelier art piece. Clerk Reinerson?
Yes, so the city clerk's office received an email from Kitsap County regarding an art piece. Artist Sarah Jane Rance asked if anyone would be interested in displaying the art, which is a Chihuly-inspired chandelier constructed by hand with 400 recyclable colored water bottles by students at South Kitsap High School. At the December 10th, 2019 City Council meeting, Mayor Patanzu asked the council if they would be considered adopting a resolution accepting this art piece and displaying it in City Hall. After further discussion, the council agreed to accept the donation and for staff to prepare the documents for acceptance. Therefore, staff has provided a resolution accepting it and recommends that the council approve it as presented.
Councilmember Chang?
I move to adopt a resolution accepting a Chihuly-inspired chandelier art piece to be displayed at City Hall.
Second.
By Councilmember Rosa Pepe. I still want to go put my hands on this and touch it before it arrives, and Mr. Dorsey and Tony Lang have some work to do to figure out how we're going to secure it to the ceiling safely, and so that it doesn't come down in the lobby down here. But as we discussed, the intent is to put it and hang it in front of the windows out front. It's about 8 feet tall and about 4 feet in diameter, so I hope it looks as good as the picture.
How much does it weigh?
I don't have a clue if it's are they glass water bottles or are they plastic water bottles?
Plastic.
Yeah.
Structurally, it's a lot less of a problem for coming than it was before.
Okay, so, all right. Councilmember Chang?
Oh, I just wanted to comment that I'm really pleased that the artist almost insisted that it be displayed in Port Orchard since it was created in Port Orchard. I'm actually kind of dismayed that the county thought of giving it to Bremerton, but good for her.
Councilmember Ashby?
I was just going to say that I would invite the council, because we have on occasion had people that have wanted to give us art pieces, and I don't think it would be a bad idea, or I invite us to consider some sort of criteria for that art. Because I know that there's going to be some expense to hang this. I know the one piece we have down on the walking path was a bit of a challenge to display too. So I just think it would be nice that we had some criteria in accepting these pieces of art.
And once again, I plan to go touch it and see it before we get too far in this process, in case it's not what it was advertised to be. And I have no reason to believe the picture looks great, but it's a picture. We haven't seen it yet, so so hopefully I'm not back talking to you and eating crow. So, all right, with that, voting on the adoption of a resolution accepting the donation of a Chihuly-inspired chandelier art piece. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The donation is accepted. We have removed item F, and we are to item 7G, approval of contract with Inslee Best Dozie Ryder PS for the city attorney services. And Clerk Reinerson.
2016, the City Council approved a contract number 18-16 with Lighthouse Law Group PLLC for City Attorney Services. The contract is set to expire December 31st, 2019. Portage Municipal Code Chapter 2.08, Appointed Officers, provides that the mayor may appoint the city attorney and enter into a professional service agreement with a law firm or an individual upon agreement by the mayor and confirmation by the majority vote of the City Council. Request for qualifications for the City Attorney Services was issued on October 14th with a submittal deadline of November 15th. 4 proposals were received. The 4 applicants were asked to interview with the city on December 4th. The interview panel consisted of the mayor, Councilmember Rosa Pepe, Development Director Bond, Finance Director Crocker, and Human Resource Coordinator Lund. Interviewed the 4 applicants. But Mayor Patanzo is providing his recommendation for Inslee Best, Dozie, and Ryder, PS, to be appointed for the City Attorney Services beginning January 1st, 2020.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
I move to approve a contract with Inslee Best, Dozie, and Ryder, PS, for City Attorney Services.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Chang. Questions or comments? I thank Councilmember Rosa Pepe and staff who participated. I thank Sharon for her work for the last 4 years with the city. We're sad to see you go and appreciate the work you've done, but I look forward to this new chapter in our Inslee Best is a much bigger firm. I think they'll suit the city's needs going forward very well. We did interview 2 larger firms and 2 local firms, and there was just a distinct difference. You know, the 2 larger firms have multiple municipal clients, where the local firms, we would be their only municipal client, and just the you know, the experience and the data they're dealing with issues like ours on a daily basis, and it was very apparent in that interview process. Other questions of me on this?
Will we have an attorney attending all of our meetings?
Yes, we will. Yeah. No change there. And Charlotte Archer, and she goes by Charlie. She will be our city attorney. She grew up in Indianola, and doesn't live there now, but her family, I believe, is still there. So. With that, you'll be voting on the approval of contract with Inslee Best, Dozie, and Ryder, PS, for City Attorney Services. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the contract is approved. We are to 7H, approval of, to addendum number 3 to contract number 53-18 with Waterman Investment Partners for the 640 Bay Street project. Mr. Bond?
Thank you. In July 2018, the City and Waterman Investment Partners, LLC entered into a purchase and sale agreement for the city's property located at 640 Bay Street. 2 addenda to the agreement have been previously approved to extend the closing date to December 31st, 2019. The City and Waterman now propose a 3rd addendum to the agreement to extend the closing date to March 31st, 2020. This addendum is being requested by both parties because of the upcoming year-end deadline and because this is our last council meeting for 2019. We will continue discussions in 2020 for more substantive revisions to the purchase and sale agreement so that we can move forward to close the property in early 2020. The staff recommendation is to authorize the mayor to sign addendum number 3 to the real estate purchase and sale agreement for the city's property at 640 Bay Street and to extend the closing date to March 31st, 2020.
Councilmember Ashby?
Yes, I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign addendum number 3 to the real estate purchase and sale agreement for the city's property at 640 Bay Street and extend the closing date to March 31st, 2020.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Clausen. I think the plan here is to punt this down the road 90 days. We had some discussions about modifying this. Remember, this purchase and sale agreement has a number of requirements related to permitting a project. We just recently got the commitment from the PFD. I think the next logical step in this process, the bank needs to pick a developer and enter into a development agreement. Until that step happens, it's not realistic that anybody's going to spend a considerable amount of resources on designing and permitting, until those agreements are reached. So I would propose that we bring this, I appreciate the motion and second to extend this. And I believe we should bring this back in February. This will mature in end of March. Talk about it at the work study, whether there's a desire to modify this purchase and sale and take some of those provisions out, or whether we're going to continue this process of extensions with some measurables in it. And we just kind of ran out of, as this is our last meeting of the year, kind of ran out of time to work on any potential changes or different outcomes. So, other question?
Yeah, I would just add, I see it a little different than the mayor in that I realize that there's an interconnection between the development that may take place on the west side of town, and there's a crossroads with the proposed community center. I see the purchase and sale of 640 Bay Street as a separate item. But we were given a white paper at our last council meeting with some provisions in it to do an addendum and extend the purchase and sale agreement. I found that some of the elements of that were materially different than council's original intent with the purchase and sale. And so I'm supportive of keeping the original purchase and sale and simply moving that closing date and giving us 90 days to truly evaluate all of the criteria that needs to be looked at for the sale of that property and the development. Because the council's original intent was to make sure that property was developed and that it didn't sit in a land bank somewhere. And so that's, I think that we need this additional time to make sure that either we need to change our original intent or we need to figure out how we're going to move forward with it.
And I think bringing it back, it's sitting down with the buyers in the
Right.
audience. If you have questions for Mr. Seago, he is here. So I think this gives us that time,
Right.
and
And it doesn't change what we've got right now.
Correct.
It just extends it out 90 days and gives us more time to do the evaluation.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Before you is a 90-day extension, which is addendum number 3 to contract number 5318 with Waterman Investment Partners for the 640 Bay Street purchase and sale. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So we are to 7I, which is an item that was added this evening, which is a letter of support to the Navy for State Route 3. And the letter is before you. Lynn Wall reached out to me a month or so ago and asked me to provide a letter of support and get it before the council. And I said, certainly, could you provide me a draft of what you're looking for in that letter? I got that yesterday, so it did not make your packet on last Friday. So, so before you is a draft letter. There's 2 versions, one where we all sign and one that you're just authorizing me to sign. That might be the better, since we're missing a couple people tonight. But if you wanted some changes to this letter, maybe you would quickly read this and give me some guidance.
When is it that they want this letter?
Yesterday. It's part of their their packet going for their, as they're lobbying to get, I mean, if there's something you want changed, I may definitely make that happen, but.
Well, I was just wondering about, should it be the one with just you, or should it be the one with the full council and you?
I think our next, we could bird dog signatures if you want us to. We're happy to.
Well, the only one that, I guess we're missing both Sean and Scott, so
Yes.
do we know when those two would be available to sign?
We'd
Are they
make-
out of town? Well, we
No,
know that
no,
Sean
neither one
is-
of them out of town, so I'm happy to, matter of fact, I think Randy's downstairs printing, I hope. Maybe not, no, she's in the back room, but we could print it, and as you're walking out tonight, get your signatures if that's the desire. I'm fine with it either way. The Port of Bremerton had their letter, had all three commissioners. The city of Bremerton, it was Mayor Wheeler and the council president. So the letters I've seen so far have all been a mixed bag.
Why isn't this directed to whomever it is that they're seeking funding from? That seems a little awkward to me.
Well, we don't know who that might be. This is,
probably the
this is a.
No, it's the state of Washington.
State, okay.
Yeah, this is a letter
Yeah.
to the
Admiral.
admiral, saying that we support the work they're doing, and they would include that.
And one, and I can't remember which it was, I believe this is, the Port of Bremerton's letter was written to the admiral, and the one to the city of Bremerton was written to the governor.
Okay.
So it's all over the place. So
Okay.
Councilmember Shank's not too far
Okay.
off, but we could do it either way. Either way, I think we are supportive of the Navy pursuing whether it, I think to the admiral is better because I don't think it's just the state needs to solve this. I think the federal government has a role in it too. And then we're not creating a second letter to President Trump or the Congress.
For expediency's sake, I'd be fine with you just signing the letter, maybe because we don't know when Sean and Scott can.
And it's so close to the holiday.
Especially if
fine
they
either
needed
way.
it yesterday.
Yeah.
I guess my only comment would be that not diminishing the mayor's signature, but if you have all the electeds for the city, it certainly demonstrates a much broader support for this issue.
It's true.
Okay,
So
that's fine with me.
More ink, the better.
you're the policymakers. You tell me what you want and we'll
I
make
have
it.
no
I can
problem
go
with.
either way. I'm
yeah.
just, what's gonna work the best for what we're trying to accomplish here?
Scott works ready. She has it ready either way.
Okay, well, I'll sign.
Okay, I'm waiting for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go ahead and sign this letter and pass it on to the Admiral.
Okay,
Second.
and that's a letter signed by all.
Yes.
Perfect. Got a motion and a second to provide a letter of support to the Navy related to improvements on State Route 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll sign the letter. Please see the clerk on your way out and sign the letter. In your packet is a draft, I hope. And Sophie and I had a meeting yesterday, and I did not have a chance to she's made this agenda look much prettier than this. I've got a draft of it on my computer, but I didn't get it into the packet. And there was a desire by the council. So Sophie and I and Brandy are gonna arrive about 8:30, get the room ready. And it was hoped the council would arrive about 9, and we would talk about committee assignments. And I believe there was a desire to add a new committee, whether we're gonna shrink something else or just add one more is your guys' debate. We've got about an hour to put to that on that date. And then my goal is that we would work through a process where you guys assign your committees. We'll bring that back to the next council meeting where you guys would formally adopt that in a resolution. At 10 o'clock, Noah and I right now are working on a state of the city kind of PowerPoint like I did at the chamber. I'm doing that again at the chamber just before. So we're working on that. So we would go through what we accomplished at the, and I'm sorry that I'm going to unveil that particular PowerPoint a week before, but the chamber asked me to be their January program. But you'll see it if you're not at the chamber meeting that week before. What we've accomplished in 2019 what the plans that you guys have approved. That's as far as my presentation at the chamber goes. And then from there, we're going to roll into, as we've done in the past, and it'll probably roll through lunch. Each of the directors giving an overview of what they're currently working on and what they'd like to see, in their work plan for the current year, and then what their priorities are going forward, so that we can have a goal-setting session at the end. The court is planning on attending, the judge, and we're going to fit them in as soon as they're done with court. They're not going to be there all day. They'll come up, and the judge will give us some of his time. I think Sharon may stick around. Sharon Yells, the court court administrator, will stick around a little longer. And then from 1 o'clock till no later than about 3 o'clock, we'll talk through, some sort of a goal setting and prioritization of the priorities we've heard from the directors. Is anything you think I've missed, or am I on the wrong path? And part of my the state of the city, I guess, in there, right after that, I've got a list of things that we've said were priorities in the past that have never made into any budgets, and whether or not those are still priorities for the council too. So there's always the list of things we'd like to do, never seem to meet with the amount of money that we have to accomplish them, or staff time to complete them. We comfortable with that framework? Okay, so it's I've confirmed today, 17th at Puerto Vallarta, and Sophie Glass from Triangle is our facilitator. So with that, we'll go to council.
I'm processing what you
Okay,
provided us here, and I haven't completely formulated it, but I'm wondering, and maybe we could do it under the umbrella of goal setting, but I think there may need to be some discussion at the council level about some of our upcoming challenges. I'm thinking if this initiative prevails and we lose our ability to do the benefit district, the transportation benefit district, how are we going to move forward? What are we talking about? Is there other alternatives? I mean, there is obviously alternatives that I think we need to talk about. So if we want to put it under goal setting, that's fine. I just think that there is
that couple of hours is your guys' time.
Yeah, I
really
think there just needs to be some discussion about some of those upcoming challenges, if you will, or issues, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
And I think that might be almost a precursor for not 2020, but we're going to be talking about a new biennial budget before long. And it would be nice to look at some of those issues at the council level. So as you and the staff start pulling together the next biennial budget, we've been able to address some of those issues. So
that in my mind, that's really what this is laying the foundation for, that next biennial budget. And so that myself and staff are capturing your priorities, so that we're not assembling a budget that's completely off base. That we do our best to try to figure out the wishes of the group, and we don't always get it exactly right, but that's our goal. At least one of mine.
I guess the only thing that I'm wondering, and this is just more of a thought than a suggestion, is I'm a little concerned about the council goal setting after lunch. I'm wondering if there's any way it could be done earlier, or if we could swap something. And I think what you presented certainly makes sense sequentially, but I am also concerned about energy levels after a meal.
The challenge, though, is you can't really set your priorities and the priorities until you know what the needs are. So that we could pull your committee assignments to the end. and the way I laid this out is that the directors are coming to this until roughly 10 o'clock. You guys have, the clerk and I and Sophie, to work through your committee process ahead of everybody else showing up, was what my thought was. But that's probably about the only thing I could swap, is pulling that out and sliding everybody up.
That might be a nicer activity after lunch. The committee assignments. I'm fine with what you presented.
Kind of nice to know what committees we're going to be on, because it gets you thinking a little bit differently about some of the questions and concerns.
I would like to see us, and again, this goes into goal setting, but just have a informal conversation about the growth that we expect Port Orchard to take, and understanding what that growth is going to mean. I see the work that the directors and their future priorities as a closer time frame, maybe the next biennium or maybe out 4 or 5 years. But I think we need to also talk about what our expectations may be, the foundations we need for what may happen, 10 to 15, 20 years from now.
Certainly. I'm open to.
Yeah.
Sophie's there to
Right.
somewhat whiteboard and
Right.
capture whatever anyone, what the consent, and not that we're going to do this, but in past too, we've had a number of, we've prioritized, we've voted and prioritized. She's going to be ready to do something like that if it's appropriate, if we need it. If not, there might be, I don't know. I'm kind of leaving it nebulous on purpose, so it's really that couple of hours is your time to tell us what you want. I don't have a whole lot of structure to it.
Yeah.
We've done 3 of these. This will be 3 of these now. I think we've all, and with basically the same group of folks, and we did some great work with, our guiding principles. The clerk's office is going to put that on a poster board. We're going to bring it, and Jay a couple times has pointed to that, and as we've been through some interview panels, that it's very poignant. So, okay, with that, we'll move on to our committee reports. And Finance Committee, you just met tonight?
We did. I mentioned the one item that we had talked about was the changes to the police department. We also reviewed the how the sales tax is performing, as well as the REIT money. Sales tax is doing very well. We're up about just over 5% over our estimated budget amount, which is good. And we still have 1 month yet to collect for December. So from that standpoint, we're in great shape. The REIT money, even with the moratorium, is coming in strong, and we're doing well in that regard. All of our different fund balances, we went through those, and we did talk some of the specifics like Tremont and how close we were to closing out Tremont, some of those things, but all of our fund balances are doing quite well. We're actually a little bit ahead of what we anticipated to be. So from a financial standpoint, the mayor and Noah are doing a great job of keeping us moving forward.
Printing money.
I'm not going to report that, but
All right. Economic Development Tourism, I don't think you've met.
No,
but I
we have
see you
not.
have a meeting scheduled for January. Utilities just met.
We did, actually, and mostly it was an overview of what's been going on. Blackjack Creek homeless camp abatement was a discussion item. Approximately a $25,000 cleanup, which apparently is already being organized and taken care of.
Yeah, we've had some other discussions about that. More to come.
More to come.
Okay, maybe
Oh,
you'll cover
good.
that in your director's report.
Oh, good, excellent. And then we talked about well 13, about the drilling is at about 850 feet that one of the latest reports. It's going a little bit slower because you've hit clay. But we're moving forward with that. Marina Pump Station, the extension should be done, 30% design done in March, and then we'll move on to final design beyond that. I'm not sure when to give the holiday report. Should I give that now?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the last meeting.
So we went out last night and drove around, and the winners are best.
My home. No?
You got the Best Mayor's Award.
Okay.
You blew it. Fred, you blew it. Best business, Kitsap Bank. We just can't, it can't be beat. Best business district, Port of Bremerton. Again, oh my word. We couldn't believe the reindeer, the sleigh, how much work they put into it, the synchronization to music, the lights, gorgeous. We'll have to write them a nice thank you. Best neighborhood, again, sorry to say, but Fantail Court Southwest. No one can beat that neighborhood. That's in the Ridge in McCormick Woods, and I would recommend everyone go out there and take a look. They even have a banner that goes across the street. I've never seen anything like it. The best neighborhood runner-up is Tenby Court. That was a beautiful area in McCormick Woods. Again, you kind of have to scoot in. We had to sort of drive up what almost looked like a private driveway, but beautiful effort on the part of that neighborhood. Most festive home decorations, 1135 Sydney Street. The Grinch display. Oh
great.
my goodness. We just couldn't believe
That
it.
one's new. They haven't decorated much in the
I've
past.
never seen anything like it, and I think all of their Grinch characters were all hand done. It's beautiful. Most festive home decorations runner-up is 2411 Siskin Circle. They had elves, and it was really beautiful. Most traditional home decoration, 470 Flower Meadows. They did a very nice job, and a very close runner-up with that was 7080 Tenby Court. And we kind of went back and forth on that. Some of these were hard to decide. The Hats Off Award goes to the City of Port Orchard Public Works staff. Amazing what you all did with the amount of time and all of the
challenges.
Yes,
Challenges.
they came out beautiful. Our city is beautiful. And of course, Fred sort of blew it, but the Best Mayor Decorations Award went to you.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
I get help from my son. That's a long ways
I'll give
up
this
on
to
my
you,
house.
Brandy. What we think would be nice for the future is that homeowners, businesses could actually nominate themselves so that we know where to go to look, and we put more information out about this to get more people involved.
Or even so you nominated your neighbor, because I was noticing that one on Sydney the last couple of weeks. It's great. I drive
It's
it all
just
the-
amazing.
They've done a great job.
Yeah, so tastefully done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much. It was fun, and thank you, John, for driving.
Yeah,
Councilmember Rosbach?
Cindy just said it. Thank you to Councilmember Clausen for driving last night. It took a lot of pressure off.
My pleasure.
All right. We're Sewer Advisory Committee. I don't believe you've met.
No, not until February.
February. Land Use doesn't have a meeting scheduled, and I've understand that lodging tax is going to meet in October.
Kick that can down the road.
So we just heard about Chess Festival Chimes and Lights and outside committees. I had two today. Transit, they approved a number of contracts related to continuing to test and support the beaches for the ferry service and support contracts for that. And then there was a very good discussion about the Capitol. 976 is presenting us some challenges, what the future could look like. And we started a debate about whether a 1% measure is appropriate.
Yeah.
1/10 measure is appropriate. And it starts with conversations with the community and what they would want in more transit. If they want more transit service first and what that would look like. And as we heard, I think from the various board, I think that it varies from community to community. I think Bainbridge Island is probably more concerned with electric buses and double-decker buses, and I hear from Mayor Erickson all the time about Sunday service, and I think Bremerton, that's important to Bremerton too, and you know, I'm not sure what that message here in Port Orchard would be from our citizens. So I think that's what we've got to start with. What do our communities that represent Kitsap Transit want? And then from there, maybe we talk about a business plan and what that could look like. And it definitely won't be, I don't believe, in 2020 that we're considering that at all. We've got a lot of legwork to do and talking to our community. I had a Plan Paul meeting today. Councilmember Ashby and I were both there. I'm gonna let Nick tackle that in his director's report. And we've already talked about the council retreat. So quickly, my mayor's report. Kitsap County came and gave our presentation. I've since had a meeting with Commissioner Garrido and Ron Thomas about their plans for public outreach, and the first meeting they're proposing is going to be January 22nd at 6:30 in the Commissioners' Chambers. And just some background, some of us have been involved in our city government as long as 37 years or 17 or 18 years myself, and others of us not as long. And I remember when I first got on the council, we just finished litigation with the county. The county was planning on moving the county seat to Bremerton, and we prevailed in court. And one of the outcomes with that is we recognized there wasn't any place for the county to expand their operations, and we went through an extensive process to rezone some property up in that area. And you know, there's nothing we've heard to date, and we haven't got any applications yet either, but other than I've been very direct, and Nick Bond has too, the need to solve parking. The county has a horrible parking problem that they need to address, but anything we've heard to date is, you know, allowed for in our code and in the current zoning. So we need to keep that in mind. There is a need for public outreach, but also we haven't seen applications, but in any of the conversations, we haven't heard of anything, and they haven't indicated there's going to be anything that's outside of what our code's going to allow. We do have a couple of huge public records requests right now, so it caused us to unfortunately look at workloads and shift some workloads between finance and the clerk's office. It's just the nature of things in our world. And yesterday morning, I took Chris Henry and a photographer on a tour of the clock tower. And I think one of the Bremerton Beat Blasts is going to be on that. And she's planning on doing an article about City Hall being 20 years old at sometime after the first of the year. And, you know, just like our homes, sometimes we need to do some maintenance to them. I know we're planning on putting some specs out for some of those improvements. So I provided her a list of the things that we're contemplating doing to City Hall. If you ever want a tour of City Hall or the clock tower, I'm glad to take you up there sometime. So there's quite a bit of spray foam, baling wire. What else is up there? Buckets. There's buckets up there, and a sump pump that takes the water out that leaks to the roof. So it's an interesting space. Village Greens, I've reached out to Matt Murphy. The date that works best for him and I is January 8th. I know you'd expressed a desire, and so had Scott and Jay, but I have not been able to get a hold of the person that gave us the tour at Village Greens. So hold that date, and hopefully that date works for them, and I'll be back in touch. And that's all I have. Directors, Mr. Dorsey, talk about your homeless camp.
Yeah, so Public Works Department, Tony, Jackie, and I met with a representative from the Health District and Kitsap County Solid Waste. We had a very open and honest conversation about challenges and expectations from the Health District and their challenges, and then, of course, I responded with a very open conversation about our challenges that have only gotten worse with some recent court findings. And so until we develop some policy, I think what we agreed to today is that the health district is willing to step up with their staffing and the county and with a volunteer group, potentially the Navy, and they'll take care of this kind of immediate camps that are currently down there that are continuing to degrade, so that the city has time to either start budgeting funding in, every year as a line item of homeless abatement, and developing some policy, because as you know, there's requirements for providing housing if you're displacing, providing property identification and holding, and there's just some challenges that we're just not set up to deal with yet, definitely not the Public Works Department on its own. And so I think with the health district stepping up and saying, okay, well, we'll help get through this initial encampment or encampments on city-owned property that we only own those because of foreclosures, mainly because of ULID 1. People were assessed on unbuildable properties, they didn't pay the tax, and then voila, we're the owners of this property down in the ravine. So I think this is a really good moment for the city, and we're very thankful for the health district and the county to step up. And so we can take care of this immediately, but we're going to have to, in 2020, address this much more, this systemic issue more robustly in 2020.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, and then I wanted to say Sláinte to Sharon.
Mr. Crocker?
I just want to confirm logistics. So we will not set up any committee meetings until after the council meets in January. Is that correct?
I believe there's one on the, and there were, until we vote in, it's the same council members. So the typical plan is that they continue to meet until new appointments are made. And so
Okay.
I see one committee that's meeting January 13th before our retreat, which would be the Economic Development Tourism Committee,
And
unless
we-
they change their.
Yeah, we've canceled the last two meetings with lack of an agenda, and I don't know what would be coming up in January, so.
It's two.
Yeah.
Chimes and Lights is the same day.
They're meeting on January 13th. So could be a couple of exceptions to that, but there aren't any others scheduled to this point. And then after the 17th, then those new committees, if there's, when there's changes, if and when there's changes.
Okay, and then I guess I'll look to your guidance, Mayor, of if you'd like us to try to schedule a finance committee for January 14th or wait till the 21st, once the new committee is established.
Will you have financial reports on the 14th?
No.
So there's probably not a need to meet.
No, but there is we could do the 21st or the 28th. There's a couple of topics I want to bring to the new finance committee.
Okay.
As we start the new year.
Desire to meet before the council meeting on the 14th? Or do you want to wait?
I could do either. I will not be in attendance on the 28th.
Okay.
Why don't we not schedule something right now and we'll.
And wait till we
figure it
have a
out.
new
We'll figure it
committee.
out. Okay, fair enough.
That's fair. Then the only thing from me is happy holidays, happy new year. I'll see you in January.
Mr. Bond?
All right, today we, as you mentioned, we attended the Plan Paul meeting, and we are working on the countywide planning policies, which have been under development for, it seems like, well over a year at this point, and I think we're pretty near the finish line on this. And the policies we've been developing relate to our designated centers, which you all probably remember adopting the comp plan amendments, which we tweaked some center boundaries, changed the terminology to match PSRC criteria. And now KRCC is getting in line with what the city has done in its plan and what PSRC adopted 2 years ago. And so you'll be asked to ratify these amendments here probably towards the end of 2020. And the big discussion today was we're creating multiple paths for designating centers. There's under the scenario that you meet the criteria today and want recognition, you can apply to be recognized as a center. Or if you're aspiring to be a center, you can seek a candidate designation, which is kind of a holding place for you until you actually meet the criteria and then can be more easily recognized by KRCC without a formal amendment to the countywide planning policies. And so the other discussion had to do with recognizing our military centers, which are, there's major military centers and then the smaller military centers in the county. And so we are moving forward with that recognition. And so you'll be seeing that at some point next year. And anything else, Mayor, that?
Yeah, the master plan.
I meant related to a Plan Paul.
That was Plan Paul.
The master plan.
7F.
The item we pulled.
What's that?
This planned action EIS.
Yeah, no, I was going to come to that. I was asking about Plan Paul, whether there was anything else.
No, that was it, yes.
Okay, yeah, so the second item, we pulled the GGLO contract from the agenda tonight. We were making progress on a scope and fee. Some of their subcontractors that are on the team were not available to provide enough feedback, and so there's still a number of blanks to fill in. And they're a little off from what we were targeting on cost, and so we're trying to get them to come down a little ways on what they're quoting us. And so we've got time. We'll get to it in early January, and hopefully we'll be able to get a good contract in place.
So, Sharon?
Thank you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the mayor and the city council for the opportunity to serve as your city attorney. It has been a true honor and pleasure to work with all of you and with your excellent directors and staff. And I just want to wish everybody a very enjoyable holiday season and a very happy and prosperous new year.
And thank you, Sharon. I greatly appreciate your services the last 4 years. Pleasure to work with. Chief? You haven't been a pleasure to work with.
No, I know, I'm demanding. I wanted to thank the mayor and the council for being supportive of us tonight. We really are doing a lot of good work downstairs, and one of our goals is to make sure that you guys are seeing that and make sure the community is seeing that. And we've worked very hard to bring what we did to you guys tonight, and I'm very thankful that you guys were supportive of that, so appreciate it.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Chief, so during the discussion of upgrading to a sergeant position, it was 6 to 9 months for that hire. Could you just enlighten the process a little bit?
Sure. So it's a civil service position, and we've been working for about the last 4 months with our Civil Service Commission and our HR coordinator to rewrite the rules. They have not been updated in some time, and they needed to be brought up to kind of what the standards are in the state and in the community. So we're working on that, and a component of that is the sergeant's promotional process. The other issue is, as well, is that the way that we approach things, at least in my business now, is we tend to not do these type of promotional assessments in-house. So there's a company that we work with that we do our new hires with, called publicsafetytesting.com. I've worked with them with all of my organizations, and they come in, they bring in outside commanders and sergeants to conduct these assessments. There's some role playing and a variety of other things. I've already preloaded them that we were looking at this. I would imagine we're going to have 5 to 8 members of the department put in. With that number of people, the only time that they can get it scheduled is June. And that's where the delay would be.
Thank you.
You betcha.
So, Chief, didn't your Civil Service Committee meet here recently too? Did they finally come to the criteria for the position that we'd like to hire?
Yes, so we did meet again today. We've been meeting monthly. We did finally nail down the civil service rules for the new hire position or a lateral, and so we can go ahead and start recruiting. We're going to start doing that after the first of the year, and we are working on the sergeant's section of that.
Wonderful. Look forward to it. I'm going to jump to Tony. Tony, what do you got to share with us in the back row there? You got nothing? All right. I know Public Works is doing a lot more than nothing. So I appreciate the work you're doing. I know better. I know that your new foreman, Chris, I'm seeing him around City Hall here a bit, and I know that fortunately you have 2 openings right now in the crew, and you were conducting interviews earlier this week. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing and everything around town. We get compliments. I get compliments all the time, and it's.
So I'd like to point out that Tony's missed a wonderful opportunity because this was the opportunity to talk about all the wonderful work that our electrician not only does here visibly with lights, but on pump stations and emergencies. And that was something that I had brought to the city when I came here, that we need an electrician, and it's proved itself tremendously. And we're going to be requesting in the next biennial budget to have another, because we're moving away from having a company manage our SCADA system, and Mike's been doing that. But the reality is Mike can't take a vacation or get sick, and so we're going to be looking at having another electrician controls expert probably in our next budget.
Sounds like you're spoiling all your secrets for your presentation.
No, I think we're just taking the opportunity. It's very important.
Okay. Brandy?
Disclosures and trying to get them done as best as I can, and that's about it. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Now we're to public comment.
Go to the order.
Go to the order. We want to do that first before? Okay.
I never know when. I just wanted to say that the county's Department of Human Services last week did a public training for Narcan, and 20 people, including myself, received sample kits with training. And I am glad that the first person who did in the city was not me, because it's not a very comfortable process. But it's basically a couple nasal sprays. My conception before the class was that it was like an aerosol that you just spray in their face, and it's very invasive. You put it in their nose, you're really doing a chest rub. And they recommend that you give resuscitation also if necessary. We heard from one participant who said that he had actually needed 4 of these sprays before he was revived. Wow. And he was asked, like, how did that happen? And he said that he had been trying to overdose on heroin, but with 4 sprays, he was revived. So it was a good training, and I'm glad that our police are fully equipped with it as well.
It's great to see them here, and great to hear Officer Shively's story. Other things for the good of the order?
Happy holidays.
Okay. And Jerry, for public comment. We're all yours.
I get so stiff. Since you were talking about parking downtown, that made me think, are our parking passes for on-street parking, is this like the end of our 2 years, or do we,
They haven't been part of that discussion. It's really what's been driving this discussion about parking and the parking lots downtown is the merchants.
Right, but I'm just, all of a sudden I'm thinking I've got my truck parked on the street and I don't want a ticket starting January 1st. Are they due now, or?
No, we've implemented a list, and when we run into those, they're good for 2 years, but they're from when they were issued, and there was a large block of those this last summer, and parking enforcement usually, they've been putting they give you a letter to tell you, hey, your parking pass is expired, you need to go renew it at City Hall.
Oh, okay, so I could have something down there on the front of my truck and not know about it.
So you might want to look at that, or just stop by the finance office and they could look up your parking, would come with your parking pass number, probably is the easiest way.
Okay, well, okay.
They're good for 2 years, and the new ones we're issuing will have a date on them. The ones that we previously issued didn't have a date,
Right,
so that was the challenge to them.
Okay, one other thing was that, I don't know how they're stored, but if you do it every 2 years, it would be nice if it were just on the computer so you could come in and pay and don't have to fill out paperwork on each vehicle over and over again. Just an idea. So, okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments. All right, with that, happy holidays, and we'll see you soon.